big change in the market. 39.4% of the sellers said they were planning to repurchase. The rest probably moving back in with parents, moving back in with kids, kind of waiting things out a little bit. Already did that one. FHA, 32% of the loans, VA, 44.7% of the loans. So again, to that government role in the marketplace. In terms of the total FHA portfolio, California is only about 2% of the total because for many, many years, we weren't doing a lot of FHA loans because of our prices. Today, California is about 10% of the flow going in to the FHA. So we're obviously a much bigger part. Why? Look at the comparison. Again, this is just a profile based on this survey of FHA versus conventional. You can see the FHA lower sales price, obviously lower down, and first-time home buyers, about 75% of the first-time home buyers in this survey utilized the FHA. One of the kind of common refrains these days is, my poor FHA first-time buyer, I can't get them in because investors with all cash are snapping the properties up. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. It's part of the cycle. It's part of the healing. And the investors are a critical element in kind of moving us through. So as frustrating as it is, there just isn't a lot of, cash is king in the market right now. Last year, over half the homes had multiple offers. I think setting the expectations for your buyers about how competitive the market is in certain price ranges is always a really good thing to do. People don't like surprises, but when you give them a heads up, just human nature, we're always appreciative of that. In 2006, 40% of the first-time buyers did not put any money down in their transaction. That's not happening anymore. Need I say more? And last year, almost 20% of the sales were all cash. To that investor comment I made earlier, about 12.1% were investment in rental property, and 5.2% were owner purchased vacation and second homes. So what's the housing market going to be doing for this year as a whole? Well, the sales are going to be down a little bit. When I see California sales 500,000 and above, I'm thinking we're in a good market. So I don't see this as a sign of a double dip, but I do see it as a sign of lack of inventory at the moderate and low end of the market, really keeping things constrained. So we'll be down about 3.5%, but still a very healthy rate of sales compared to where we were obviously in 2007. The median price is going to be up almost 10%. That's the good news. It's 300,000. Compared to the 600,000 below, I mean, we're still going to be in a very affordable market. But when you've got half the homes in multiple offer situations, that's putting upward pressure on prices in certain categories. I'm going to now share a couple of kind of just insights from our survey that we just did 2 months ago of home buyers. Here's a look at the breakout of what they're buying. 43% were in kind of just a traditional market. 41% REO and 16% short sale. We're seeing a little bit more give in terms of short sales, a little bit more ability on lenders to kind of work through these things, but it does take a long time. The tax credit was definitely an influencing factor, and in fact, we're expecting to see in June and July a little bit of a pullback in our sales. You already saw this at the national level, that because of the expiration of the tax credit, that again kind of pushed some sales forward. I think we're going to see a little bit of a pullback in the second half of the year because that financing is gone. 85% of the buyers said they found out about the home they purchased from their agent. And I think it's really important to understand how important that realtor relationship is for most buyers. There are listings on the internet. I mean, there must be hundreds of sites where you can go to for listings. But in a market like this, where there's not a lot of inventory and there's a lot of competition, It's really getting in a relationship between the realtor and the client that results in the home sale. So 85% of buyers say they found out about it from their agent. We're also finding that buyers are not looking at print media. When we asked, did you look at newspaper and magazine ads to search for a home? In 2006, 20% of the buyers said yes. In 2010, 8% of the buyers said yes. Now, this doesn't mean print should go out of your marketing budget. Absolutely not. But it does mean that if you're still putting 80% of it into print and only 20% of it online, you might want to rethink that. You might want to rethink that given the eyeball situation. This is just go on from here. Is there someone from a newspaper or magazine here that's going to be in trouble? Okay, then let me just, I just have this cute story. I have a dear friend who's an agent in Beverly Hills. You know, he's young for me. He's like 15 years younger than I am. I've known him his whole career in real estate. And he got a celebrity listing. And I still remember we're having lunch and he's like, oh my goodness, I paid $30,000 for photography. I'm like, what? Well, they had a boom and an aerial. I mean, this was like up in the hill. You know, I was just, are you kidding me? And I gave him my whole spiel about, what are you doing? You know, just whatever. So he was very happy to inform me a few months later that the home did indeed sell. And it was sold to the buyer who found out about it because the buyer's brother saw it in one of those slick, high-end magazines, had torn it out, folded it up, put it in an envelope with a stamp, and mailed it to the brother. And the brother bought it. So it was like, okay, I get it. You know, unfortunately, you guys have to do it all. You guys have to do it all. We asked them, where do you think home prices are going to be in the next year, 5 and 10 years? You know, 23% said they'll be up in 1 year, 52% over 5 years, 76% over 10 years. The 2009 results were significantly lower. And again, my only point is that you're seeing more optimism, and that's fueling the demand for housing. How long are you planning to stay in your current home before you sell it? This has increased to 5 years. It's increased by a whole year over the last couple of years, and I think it's because people recognize that appreciation is going to be a little bit is going to be slower, and they're kind of planning accordingly. Down payment? First-time buyers are putting down an average of 23.1%. Repeat buyers an average of 37.3%. Down payments across the board are higher for everybody unless you're dealing with FHA and VA. This one is very upsetting for me personally. The question is simply, do you know the terms of your loan? 10% of the buyers said no, and my guess is of the 90% that said yes, there were probably a few no's that said they were yes. And I think this gets to the whole issue of financial management, personal financial accountability, responsible home ownership. Everybody ought to know the terms of their loan. You know, it ought to be easier. Getting a loan is the most difficult part of the transaction on a scale of 1 to 10. How easy or difficult was it for you to get financing? 67% of the buyers rated it a 9 or a 10, getting financing. So that's probably not news to anyone. Why'd you like your agent? Every year we ask this question. It's the top 2 things are response time and negotiation skills. That's what they really remember. And then we asked the buyers, what advice would you give to real estate agents? This show how you can negotiate aggressively comes up time and time again. I think it's something that may not be emphasized enough when you meet with a client, maybe go through a marketing presentation. Every realtor I know has some great negotiating stories, and we all know it's not just about price. There are so many deal points along the way. So really specifically talking about that would probably be excellent. Improving the speed of communications. I have a friend up in the Bay Area who has a 20-second rule. When someone touches his website, he responds in 20 seconds. And trust me, it's not 3 pages and 4 photographs, or 3 paragraphs and 4 photos. It's so great to hear from